Happy to start, Jess?
Fabulous, yeah, I'm ready if everyone else is.
Cool, everybody ready? Fantastic, brilliant. So thank you everybody for joining us. Welcome to the first webinar that we've hosted so far. This week we are hosting the webinar with engineering consultancy giant Atkins. So thank you very much, Atkins, for being here with us. This is the first in a series of webinars that we're running, so we're all a little bit nervous, so be gentle with us, which we are running with a key employer. The webinars are designed to give you lots of hints and tips for when you are applying for jobs, and also to give you a real good insight into what it's like to work for Atkins, and I hope you enjoy. Firstly, what I'd like to do is introduce you to the panel. So starting with myself, my name's Carla. I've worked at Gradcracker for nearly 10 years now. I'm a director here, and my main job is to look after the hundreds of the employers who advertise with us, including Atkins. So I've got a really good relationship with Atkins, worked with you for around about 10 years as well. So yeah, really excited to be here today and to be joined by the Atkins crew as well. Jess, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone. Some of you will probably recognise me on campus speaking to you all at careers fairs and doing presentations. But yeah, my name's Jessica. Big part of my role is to speak to your students, speak to everyone, and make you all aware of Gradcracker and the amazing employers that advertise with us. So it's amazing how many people have joined us today. So hello to everyone. I know we've got people from across the world that are joining us. It's all very exciting. So yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, hope we're going to have a fantastic day.
We definitely are. Neve, you want to take over, my love? Just introduce yourself, what you do. What's your name and where do you come from?
Hi everybody, I'm Neve Fitzgerald and I work on the Atkins Early Careers graduate recruitment team. I'm originally from Ireland, but I'm based in Birmingham, which means I have a great view of lots of Atkins projects nearby. I have experience also working with a commercial agency and internal recruitment. So there's not a form of recruitment I haven't come across, but I really enjoy my work on the graduate side of things. I really enjoy that early career stage of somebody's life, and it's so rewarding getting people into work and helping them, achieve their dreams.
Yeah, and Atkins is definitely employer to help do that as well, aren't they? So that's really positive. So now we'll go on to the grads. Now, Susie, you're first on my screen, so shall you lead? If you just want to introduce yourself, which uni you went to, what you studied, and what you do now at Atkins.
Brilliant, thanks Carla. So hi everyone, I'm Susie. I'm also based in Birmingham, and I'm a geotechnical engineer based in the ground engineering practice within infrastructure at Atkins. So I did my undergraduate degree at Southampton, and then I worked for a couple of years before going to Imperial to do an MSc, and then I joined Atkins on the graduate scheme 3 years ago. And I'm currently actually on secondment to EDF Energy, working on Hinkley Point C, which is really exciting.
Fantastic. I think we'll touch on that a little bit later as well, about the different projects that you've been working on, because I'm sure all our listeners will be, really keen to know about that. So it was Christina, but I think she's left us for the moment. So Louis, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Carla. So hi everyone, I'm Louis Moore. I will have just finished the graduate scheme. I'm a safety engineer based in the infrastructure risk and safety team in transportation of Atkins. I'm based in London, and I joined Atkins a little over 2.5 years ago. I did my undergraduate degree in London City University, and my degree was in biomedical engineering. And yeah, that's all me.
Thank you very much. Christina, you're back, my love, so do you want to introduce yourself?
Sorry, it's working at home, the door rang. So, I'm back. Hi, I'm Rosina. I work in Sheffield when it's not a pandemic. I work in the nuclear and power sector of Atkins as an assistant mechanical engineer, and I've loved every minute of it, really. I came from University of Warwick, where I read mechanical engineering, surprisingly enough.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. And Tavani, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Thavani. I am based in London in transportation, and I'm an assistant engineer. I did what did I study? I studied at Cardiff University. I did a placement in Atkins in Birmingham, and then I went back to Cardiff to do my master's, and yeah, now I'm in London.
Fantastic, brilliant. So the kind of the theme of the webinar is we're thinking about splitting it into two halves. The first focusing on Neve really and the recruitment side of things, and then the second part of it to speak to the grads and the experiences that they've had so far. What we're hoping to do is, and myself and Jessica, ask all the questions that you would ever want to ask. So it's kind of different projects that they've been working on, what it's like to work for Atkins, the culture and everything like that. So that's kind of the general theme for the whole webinar. Last year, myself and Jess went and did an insight day with Atkins, which was absolutely brilliant. Neve was the star of the show, so that was a really fun day, wasn't it, Neve? We got very wet, actually. It was in London, soaked. But if you haven't already looked at the Insight Day, that's available in the Careers Centre. Definitely worth a watch and a listen. Loads of hints and tips on there as well. So, Neve, if I may start with you. I know I said at the beginning of the whole presentation, I've worked with Atkins for a number of years now. But how would you describe Atkins? Who is Atkins to you?
Sure. So I've been with Atkins just over 2 years, and originally when I heard of Atkins, I thought, oh, what's that about? But we're one of the world's most respected design, engineering, and project management consultancies, and we're a member of SNC-Lavalin Group. Atkins has a really strong tradition in the UK, and now being a member of SNC-Lavalin Group, we now have that worldwide footprint. So it's really, really exciting. Our business covers a variety of areas. So for example, some of the grads on the call have mentioned that they work for transportation. We also have infrastructure, nuclear and power, ADS&T, very long acronym. I'm lucky I got that right in one go. And you know, resources. So it's really, really exciting business to work with because our scope is so broad, and because again of that kind of worldwide footprint. So that's Atkins, but it's not like every day when you're in the office you're, you know, looking out, look at Atkins, look at my kingdom, look at what we do. Because, you know, every day that you're working, you know, the projects are fantastic and you see examples of them wherever you go, whether it's big or small. You might be on a motorway, you might be going through a train station, but you know, one of the biggest things about Atkins is that day-to-day culture, the people that you work with. And I think as impressive as we are for what we do, it's how we do it. That's really impressive, that sense of community and the culture that we foster.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, from both my and Jess's point of view as well, we've been to Atkins in London and we've also been to Atkins in Birmingham, and whichever kind of Atkins place that we go to, there's, I know you're a worldwide company, a leading consultancy, but it's such a friendly, close-knit kind of community. And I mean, the buildings that you're based in are absolutely extraordinary as well, but you never feel overwhelmed by it. And I think, you know, some of our listeners who want to work for a big company and be involved in the massive projects like you are, they might be a little bit intimidated by, oh, well, it might be too many people who work there and things like that. But from my point of view, you know, just being a visitor visiting Atkins, that didn't come across like that. It was such a nice family friendly, you know, culture there. So that it's, you know, it's a really good place to work, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things, even I suppose, you know, when you read up about a company like Atkins, and I remember my interview, it was just over 2 years ago, and I remember feeling intimidated. I thought, oh God, they've done some massive projects and that looks impressive. And do I even know the lingo about engineering? But again, I think people are really surprised when they come to our assessment centres or when they interact with us, how not stressy it is. You know, we get the work done, we work on really exciting projects. There's sometimes, you know, a lot going on, but because it's always unity and our culture, I think it just makes it such an enjoyable place to work, and there's no need to feel intimidated because of that.
No, I completely agree. So you mentioned about the culture there, Neve. What do you think makes Atkins different, you know, to the other engineering consultancies out there? What are your key differences, do you think?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I think, yeah, definitely the culture thing really stands out for me. I've worked in recruitment, I've worked with lots of businesses as a supplier, as a customer. I've kind of seen business from a lot of different angles.
Yeah.
And, I've worked for companies for a long time. I couldn't even begin to tell you what their core value is.
Yeah.
Haven't a clue. And I worked there. Um, and I think that's a real crying shame, because the thing I really, really enjoy about Atkins is that we live our values
Yeah.
every day in what we do, in how we interact. Our values are at the forefront.
Mhm.
So, safety, integrity, collaboration, innovation, they're at the forefront of everything we do. And, you know, we mean what we say, when we bring those into play with how we interact with people or just with the environment. So that's always really impressive.
Yeah.
I suppose I think also another thing that I really enjoy, um, early careers, for some people, it could be their very first job. You might have, never had work before. You might have never been in an office before. And I think the care and support that goes into supporting that graduate community is outstanding. And there's so many different avenues and ways that we can support people. So, if you like to do things face to face, if you like to do it via text, if you like to do it writing an email, there is a way for you to feel connected and, to feel supported in all that you do with us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was going to be one of my questions, and I think the listeners, our audience here, would want to know. It is a big transition going from either being a student to going on to a placement, or being a graduate leaving university and going into the big wide world. It could be their first job. So what kind of support do you give the students? Is there kind of a mentoring scheme there? How do you make the students feel at ease and at home when they join Atkins?
Yeah, I mean, we have to remember, there's quite a journey that leads up to that first day.
Yeah.
And it's really important that we recognize all those steps on the way, because you just don't wake up, click your fingers, and oh, I've landed in my first job. So we have a number of things in place. So, for example, there will be our website, and that will have all the details and the nitty gritty and the job descriptions and that. We also have a fantastic platform called Connector, and this can be used at different stages of your process with us. So it could be before you've even made your application, it could be during your application, it could be when you've got that good news, you've got the job, and it could be when you're waiting, oh, I'm supposed to start work in 2 weeks' time. So you can link into that. Connector is fantastic. It kind of can give you that local flavor or the real specific details that you need about the specialism that you're going to. So you can ask our current graduates or current apprentices about their journey at Atkins, the projects they're working on. So it's really, really informative, and it can be used somewhat socially. Tell me about this particular office, this culture, what I'll be doing. It can be quite technical. I have this degree. Do you think, I would suit this particular role? So it can be used for a number of things. Of course, then on your job, you'll always have your recruiter, a nice photo, I hope. And, all your recruiters will be on LinkedIn. By all means, drop us a line. There's also a place on that website, where you can get in touch with us. As we move along then, getting closer to, you've gone through the process, you're now at the stage where maybe you've been offered a role. Of course, you'll have your dedicated line manager, and we also have a buddy scheme. And the buddy scheme is really good. It's somebody who's familiar with the graduate scheme. They might still be on the graduate scheme, and they'll be either on your team or working very closely with your team. And they're the kind of person you can reach out to for kind of the more informal questions. It might be, oh, I'm starting at the London office. Where will I park my bike, or lock up my bike? What's the best place to get a coffee? And this buddy person, you can ask them the technical questions as well, but it could be that you arrange to meet for lunch on your first week that you start, and there's somebody that you can really lean upon at the start of your journey to help you settle in. And a lot of them will have gone through the same process, so they know what you're feeling.
Yeah.
We also offer, of course, mentoring, but we also offer reverse mentoring. So, you know, with a company like Atkins, we have so many fantastic people that have worked for us on major projects, and you can look to them, you know, for guidance. But also, new graduates coming in have a life experience and an exposure that, you know, maybe somebody who's worked for us for 20 years doesn't have.
Yeah.
So we're looking to the incoming students. You are the next generation. You have some really valid experiences that you can actually help mentor, you know, people that are long established with Atkins. And you know, so that's really good. It is like an exchange of ideas. It's not like you're just looking up towards somebody,
Yeah.
you know, they're also looking to you. And then of course, you know, with many of our roles, there's a route to chartership.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other area of support, you know, and setting you up with your tutors, and, you know, finding out what that route for chartership is for you, depending obviously on, you know, your specialty or, you know, the particular area that you've gone into. And then we have a really good graduate community, and there's also a graduate induction. So the grad community, you know, they might be based in a different office from you, but they're going through the exact same thing as you.
Yeah.
You're all starting around the same time. And then when you actually get into Atkins itself, you know, obviously we have all our internal channels. So we have a great place called Yammer, and you know, that will have lots of different groups, whether you want to go into a group that's quite technical, or they also have like some fun groups there as well. So you can share photos of your dog and that kind of thing, and photography and pun of the day, and you know, there's lots of fun stuff like that. But going back to one of our core values is safety, and you know, safety relates to not only physical safety, but how we interact with each other and how we support each other.
Yeah.
So most of our major offices also have mental health first aiders. So you know, there's so many different channels you can take if you needed to reach out to somebody, or you wanted to, you know, talk to anybody. So it's really good, and there's something for everybody.
Yeah, brilliant. I think as well, I know my next question, Neve, was going to go on to hints and tips, but I'm conscious of time, and I do really want to speak to the grads as well. But you know, something that you've just said there that kind of struck a chord with me is that you can research Atkins, and obviously you should research Atkins when you are applying for jobs. Obviously the Grad Cracker Hub, you know, the insight that we did last year, these are just fantastic places where there's so much information. So it's not just loads and loads of writing. You know, our views would be police. You know, there's things like this is going to be on their podcast, video, and we do have an employee profile page as well. So you can actually get to read what the previous grads have done and everything else. So again, the hub is a really good place for you to go to and get all this information. And kind of following on from that, it isn't just and to kind of back up Neve's point, it isn't just when you're going through the application process. You know, the week before you start or the day before you start, it would be good to get back on the hub as well and kind of look at what the culture's like, and it'll give you something to talk about on your first day as well. So don't just think of Grad Cracker, the hubs and everything else, and you know, the career centre as a place to go to when you are applying. It should be like a couple of days before as well, so you can really get to know the company, their core values and everything else. So our audience doesn't know this, but we kind of got an agenda for this meeting, but I'm going to skip a couple of points ahead because I know you'll all be dying to hear from the grads. So what we are going to do now is, I mentioned at the beginning, you know, myself and Jess have kind of knocked our heads together and thought, right, what would you, our listeners, really, really like to know? So now what we're going to do is speak to the grads in a little bit more detail, get to know them a little bit more and ask them the questions. And Neve, if we do have time at the end, I'm definitely going to come back to you, my love, for hints and tips. So just bear with me. So Jess, do you want to take over for this?
So my first question is for Tivani. So what I want to know from you, Tivani, is if you could tell me about Atkins in your own words and a bit about your experiences so far.
Yeah, sure. So Atkins is brilliant. Like, it's so great. Obviously, it's got an amazing reputation, and it's when you join, you realise why. The standard of everything that's produced is so amazingly high, and when stuff is produced so high, it makes you want to work to that standard. It makes you want to learn more, and you do learn loads. Atkins has got a really unique culture, and it's such a great learning environment, and like you're never afraid to ask questions, like even if it seems really, really silly, you can just like roll your chair over to someone next to you and just like nudge them a bit. Yeah, and it's a really like nice environment. Like Neve said, it's just a really nice environment to work from. Like everyone's so friendly, everyone's so willing to help. And yeah, it's just really nice.
Oh, that's a lovely thing to say about that, because I think, like I said, the transition, and like we discussed before, it can be really nerve-wracking. So it's really nice to hear how relaxed you are about, in the program, and how you feel about it. Do you know, I'm saying it a bit early because I have spoke to you all before this webinar, but you all seem so proud to work at Atkins. When you talk about, all your faces light up and you're all like, yes, this is what I do. It's great to see that. So this is a question to you all. What was the kind of original reason why you chose to apply to Atkins? There's lots of other companies out there, and I'm sure when you're going through a grad cracker, you can see hundreds of opportunities, and thousands of opportunities on grad cracker. So what kind of made you decide Atkins is the one for me? And that goes to anyone who wants to answer it first.
I'll start then. Hi. So I went round applying to Atkins in a bit of a roundabout way, in the sense that I started and did a year placement first in between my third and fourth year at university, and not many companies seem to offer these. More companies, I suppose, now are offering these year placements, but at the time there was actually quite few and far between. And I also had previous experience shadowing a different consultancy company, and I really enjoyed the problem solving aspects of that company's culture and just basically how consultancies go around doing work. So I sort of found year placement plus consultancy, smushed that together, and out pops Atkins. And
Smush.
it was smushed. It's a very technical term, smushed. Yeah, and that's how I kind of wound up here, and I haven't really left. So I went back to do my final year, and then I came back as a grad, and still here nearly 4 years later.
Since you've touched on work experience, we say all the time, when I'm out and about on campus, speaking to the students, saying how important work experience is. And I think, it looks great in your CV, but two, I think it's such a good experience for you to gain, for you to realise, where can I see myself working at the end of my degree? Is this actually the industry, I want to kind of forge a career in? So obviously that experience for you was a real positive one, and kind of definitely nailed in the fact that that's what you wanted to do. So obviously, could you tell me a bit about your kind of the work experience, how you found that, and what was it like when you started?
Yes, I did a year placement in Bristol, and I went from Warwick to Bristol, and I basically lived there for a year. And that was a bit of a culture shock, because you sort of sit in that little university bubble, and then suddenly you're there getting up at sort of 7 to get to the office wearing a suit, and public transport and all this jazz, and you're paying, council tax, income tax, and you're there going, oh, I feel like such an adult. So yeah, I think that was more of a culture shock, but actually going into the office, it felt like a very familial place. And this was something that struck me when I actually got interviewed for my year placement. It was just such a friendly, quite a flat hierarchy as well for a company. There's some very sort of big, tall companies, and this one's actually quite flat. There's not many levels between me and effectively the director, which was actually, I ended up becoming good friends with him over the course of the year, and that was, and stuck as good friends as well. What did I get up to? I ended up co-writing a paper that got published, which was quite exciting. And that was off the back of learning how to do finite element analysis properly. Sort of did a bit of it at uni, but that really came and got developed over the course of half a year, researching bits, wrote a paper with that, and it got presented at a conference, which was absolutely mind-blowing. So my name was up there really big. And then on top of that, learning how everyone likes their tea when it was my turn to go do the tea. And yeah, writing a formal report's actually quite different from ones you do at school or uni. So you write a lot of reports at a consultancy to kind of go, this is how we did it, and this is what we found, kind of, telling a client. And just learning how to write in that formal style as well. Those key things that I learned. And then, of course, actually what I've learned at uni and how that gets used in industry. Very useful, because at the end of the day, you're not going, when is this actually useful? Because you go back to uni and go, yeah, I can see where this is used now. Very useful.
A lot of students say that, you know, I've spoken to them saying they're in the final year and they've done a year in industry or a summer placement. They just say something kind of clicks in the brain and think, this makes sense now. You know, when you go back and it all, you know, just all feels, and a lot of the careers, you know, staff that I speak to as well, they say, and the lecturers say, you can tell the person who's done, you know, a year in industry or a summer placement, because they've got a different focus now. They understand what it actually means and why they're doing it. So your final year, did you feel a bit like that? Did you feel as though it all kind of clicked into place and you felt a lot more focused and driven, would you say?
I would like to think I kept my getting up early kind of habits, but I'm definitely not a morning person.
Right.
So I kind of shifted around again back into like getting to bed at 11. But the sort of working at consistent hours and managing my time was definitely an improvement when I went back to uni. And you gravitate towards, like, the lecturers notice it, but you will gravitate yourself towards people that also did year placements, summer placements, because you just kind of a bit more clicked in with why you're there. But yeah, it helped a lot actually in my final year, because I had to choose a load of final year modules, and in fairness, there were modules out there I was going, I'm not going to use that, I won't even look at it. I ended up doing ones that I actually either would enjoy or actually were useful, and that set me up very well for a graduate life, effectively.
Fantastic. Next thing I want to have
Can I just back that point up a little bit? Do you know, we just a little note really. So when we mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, when we did introduction, so Jess is kind of the university side of things, speaking to the students, and I mentioned that I was on the employer side of things. And again, just to kind of back Jess's point up there, the vast majority of our employers are wanting somebody who has done a placement, whether it's a 6-month summer placement or a year-long placement. They really do emphasise the power behind, you know, completing that placement. So definitely make sure Atkins runs placements, you know, so make sure you follow them, get prepared for next year, but definitely do a placement.
Yes.
Sorry.
Use one in there. Next, Susie, I'm going to focus on you, if you don't mind. Just, I want to kind of go back slightly and kind of just talk a bit about the kind of application process with Atkins. Again, when I'm speaking to students and, you know, some of these students are going to start thinking about applying in, you know, in the next couple of months. If you could just talk to me a bit about the process that you went through, how you felt, and was it as scary as you imagined it to be?
Sure. Do you want me to focus on the full process or just the assessment day interview?
Yeah, on the assessment day, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So for me, it was I was invited to come to an assessment day in Birmingham, and this was with sort of prospective graduates who were coming into my department. So yeah, the day was really good. It was really friendly. Everyone, really enjoyed it, to be honest. The format of the day, I think it was a group exercise with everyone, which was non-technical. And then there was a technical assessment, and then an interview with one of the managers from the department.
Sorry, Susan,
and
one sec.
Carry on.
The technical then, talk to me a little bit more about that technical test. What did that actually entail? What did you have to do?
So it might have changed slightly, but for me it was actually a little bit like an exam paper. I don't want that to put anyone off.
Right.
But yeah, it was a sort of series of questions, and you had sort of a certain amount of time to look at that. Right. And then I think what happened then is the person who was interviewing you sort of went through it with you. So then you had a chance to sort of explain why you'd said something. Yeah. Or if you hadn't have been able to put anything down, or you struggled with something, they actually went through it with you. So that was really nice, actually, because it wasn't just a wrong or right. It was actually explaining the logic behind it.
Yeah.
So yes, that was really interesting. And another thing I really liked about the day is we actually had sort of over lunchtime, had the opportunity to meet sort of current graduates and people in the department. So that was really nice, to be honest, to get a bit more of insight to what Atkins is about, and sort of current projects that are going on.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. So then after you'd kind of done that, was it a whole day assessment, did you say? And then how quick did you hear after the assessment if you'd got the job?
Well, I think I heard the next day. So that was really great. And that was actually one of the things that sort of led me to choose Atkins, is how great the application process was, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because they just got back to me really quickly, and I felt like they were very sort of open and honest about what it was that they were looking for, and very transparent.
Yeah.
Whereas with a few other sort of people I applied to, and it wasn't quite the same. It sort of felt like there's lots of different things that were going on in the background. You didn't really know what it was. So yeah, so it was
a personal experience, Susie. You know, you mentioned going through it and actually speaking to somebody about your exam papers and things like that. So it's you know, it's you counted out, you valued even at that stage in your career.
Yeah, definitely felt like a person. So that was really nice.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's great. So Louis, going to you, if you don't mind kind of telling me a bit, obviously you went through a similar process, I'm guessing, as well. What kind of hints and tips would you give to someone who's thinking about applying and going to go through the process? What kind of hints and tips would you give to them?
So once I joined Atkins, I did sort of kind of seek a little bit of feedback as to what they were looking for and how did I do, essentially. And what they liked most was the kind of research aspect that I did. So one of the reasons why I decided to apply for Atkins in the first place was I sort of went through a bottom-up approach. I looked at sort of the biggest projects and the most interesting projects in the UK, like Crossrail or HS2, and I found that Atkins was consistently sort of heading up a lot of these ventures.
Yeah.
So I was like, so that obviously interested me at first, and then in my application process, I decided to bring up how I saw Atkins' role in this and how I wanted to be a part of it, and how it seemed like such a challenging and interesting role to really go through. So they liked the fact that I was quite specific, and I'd obviously done a bit of research as to why I wanted to choose Atkins and how I could best fit the role. So I thought they thought that was good, and I'd highly recommend anyone else taking the same approach.
Honestly, so glad you said that, because again, when we're out and about, when I'm speaking to students, I say to them all the time, research is key. Honestly, I think I've even got a quote from you saying that. You're in the career centre saying research is key, and it so is, because on so many levels, you then understand, right, is this company right for me? 2, it gives you such a good platform to show off and say, I want to work for you, I know all this, I know that, I know what you're doing. It just ticks boxes on every single side. So I'm so glad you mentioned that, because it's something that we stress all the time.
Yeah, as Susie mentioned before, when you have your interview, your technical interview afterwards, I was able to continue a conversation with my manager who interviewed me about the projects and all that. So I think it was kind of good to make a connection with the other people at the assessment centre.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose one that is probably championed by Grad Cracker hints and tips as well is kind of push for feedback, because as probably many students have, I've applied for different roles and different jobs, and when you get to an interview stage and you find that you don't get it, then some people just sort of hang their heads down and go on to the next one. But getting some actual feedback, constructive feedback from those you apply for is absolutely essential, because some of them told me about we've had people who have quite clearly researched in the past, and that's worked in their favor. So next time you go to an interview, try and demonstrate that you've done that research a bit more. So that was useful feedback for me, and that allowed me to eventually get the job at Atkins. So I highly recommend that approach. Get feedback, be a little bit, show some resolve, and yeah, it's not nice to hear sometimes constructive feedback, but I highly recommend it. It's worth it in the long run.
Because even getting feedback, you think, like you said, you might not like it. You might think, right, how do I take this? But how can I use it to actually make myself a better person and take it constructively and not be too sensitive and think, oh, that was really bad. So that's a good point as well, that, I think asking for feedback at every level, no matter what you're doing, I think as well is a really good thing to do, to kind of self-assess and think, what can I learn from this? It's a good point.
Yeah.
Susie, I think you had some key points as well that you wanted to touch upon as well in terms of the application process, did you?
Is that me, Jessica? Yeah, great. I heard an S and something else. So definitely following on from what Louis said, just be curious, research, have an interest in what we're doing. If you can, go to a professional society event that Atkins is presenting at, and then you'll probably get an opportunity to meet some people as well, which is really useful. Be yourself in the application as well and on the day. One of the great things about Atkins is that we welcome people from a range of backgrounds, and we want people to bring their whole selves to work. So, you know, let your personality shine through. I think that's really important. And then my last tip would be, you know, really sort of read the application, look what is it that Atkins are looking for. So we've talked about the values. How can you demonstrate, you know, how does some of your experience tie up with our values? And think outside the box for that. So, you know, ideally you would have done some sort of work experience, but you might not have. One thing that really helped me after my undergraduate was I'd worked in a bar all the way through university. Lots of transferable experience from that, it turns out. So
yeah, I think that's a really good point as well. I think, you know, a lot of you know, any kind of experience you can get, you know, working is a great way to show off those softer skills, transferable skills. The fact that you can get up early, you can get to work, you're committed, you know, communication skills, being part of a team. Again, it ticks all the boxes. So definitely show off those kind of part-time jobs that you might have, or don't, you know, not mention them or anything, because, you know, as a recruiter, I know you, Neve, you definitely like to hear bits like that, wouldn't you, from them?
Sorry, I think I was on mute. Yeah, there's so many different elements that make up a person's motivations to work, and you know, makes them who they are. You know, your points about placements are valid. You know, they're a great thing to have. Not everybody is lucky enough that they can afford to do a placement, or that they have that opportunity to take time out to do one. But you will definitely have something that you've done that will tell us more about your attitude to work and what drives you. So we do ask people, look towards, you know, work experience, whether that's paid or unpaid, part-time jobs. Maybe you've got a family caring commitment, maybe you have a hobby, maybe, you know, you're into the arts or sporting achievements. There's got to be something that will, you know, show us more about you. So, you know, we're happy to hear about that in the application, and it really makes it personal, and it makes you a well-rounded person when we hear stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, I'm just conscious, Susie, and Louis, when you mentioned about your application process and how you found things like that, obviously I'm coming to you, Neve, now, but the world at the moment, you know, there's an awful lot of uncertainty. So what Neve would normally cover as part of the webinar would be the application process, you know, how things are going to look for applications in 2020 for 2021 starts. Neve and I had a quick chat this morning about where Atkins is at the moment, and you've got a couple of bits that you wanted to mention there, Neve.
Yeah, sorry, just making sure I'm off mute again. So yeah, the process, we know that our graduate scheme will open in October. We're still looking towards opening our graduate scheme for that 2021 intake. So there's really positive news there. As you can imagine, strangest year I've had yet.
Yeah.
I think the strangest year we've all had yet. But you know, we need to make sure as we move forward with this year that, again, we're living up to our values. Safety is paramount. This is an ever-changing situation. And we want to make sure, no matter which way we bring this graduate scheme forward, whether it's at the application process, at an interview process, or onboarding, that we have done everything in our power to make it the best experience for you, to make it a safe experience, and that it will have, you know, at the heart of it, good intentions for everybody's well-being. So we can't dive in today into too much detail about that application process. You know, it's summertime, and that means we're all squirreling away in the background, getting everything up and ready. So that will be ready in a few weeks. We're just crossing off some T's, dotting some I's. So I am happy to come back to this at another time and to give you more detailed information about the process. But I think the main thing to make clear to everybody is that Atkins do have a graduate intake 2021, and in order to do that, we need people to apply.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what the plan would be as well, just to our audience, we're going to obviously put the start date on the Atkins Hub so you can start following them now. And then once we are certain about how the application process is going to run, we'd put that on the Hub as well, so you can really prepare yourself and get ready for applying for the opportunities. So yeah, so thanks, Neve, for putting that in there. Jess, more questions?
Yeah, just want to second the follow feature. So just to anyone that doesn't know how the follow feature works, if you follow Atkins on GradCracker, what will GradCracker do is we will alert you about any new opportunities that they have. So as soon as they go live on GradCracker, you can get an email or a push notification via the app to say Atkins is open, get your applications in. So if you do follow, that's what will happen. So yeah, next question is for Tivani again. I just want to ask you about your kind of 5-year plan. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, and what can you imagine that looking like?
Okay. So in 5 years, I definitely want to be chartered. If I'm not, then I'll be worrying a little bit. Hopefully with the ICE. I want to be working in one of Atkins' foreign offices, maybe managing some site work, or hopefully doing something where I've done the design, I've managed the design, and then I've kind of followed it from start to finish, and then I'm going out on site and kind of watching it be built.
Yeah,
that's the dream.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
What to do? So in terms of then, would that be within the role that you're doing now and the team that you're in now, or would you imagine kind of moving off the teams? How would it work?
To go abroad, I would have to kind of venture a little bit further from my team, but I'd want to get chartered within my team because they're so supportive and they've got all the resources for me to get chartered. And then yeah, maybe venture out a little bit further and try new things.
So what country have you got your eyes set on? Do you know yet, or just gonna
Australia's quite nice this time of year.
Well, in your team, just you just mentioned that you like being in your team and you want to get a chartership within that team. How many people does that include?
So we've got 30 people in my team, and then about 90 people in the practice.
Yeah.
So if there's bits in the chartership, like attributes that are missing, then it's quite easy to move around the practice and get experience from them for like a few months and then come back to the team. So it's quite flexible in that sense, which is quite nice.
Yeah, good enough numbers. It's a bit like another community, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant.
Louis, what's your favourite project you've worked on so far?
So my favourite project was developing. It sounds elaborate, but a quantitative risk model for various sort of railway networks in the country. And the reason why it has been my favourite project so far, although I started HS2 last month, so that could change very quickly. The reason it's been my favourite project is because I was one of the first resources that was sort of used on the job. So I had to develop a lot of technical knowledge around it very quickly. That way, when other resources were, put towards the job, I had the opportunity to sort of teach them how it works, manage the resources a little bit, and that gave me an element of independence, which I hadn't seen till then. So that really allowed me to grow in my role. And up until that point, I hadn't had much client interaction either. So it was daily sort of meetings with clients. I would chair workshops where there would be multiple clients from multiple sites coming in, and we'd try and get the results we needed. So that, yeah, again, it was just a really challenging role, and that's why I've enjoyed it so much. And in that role, I've kind of realised that my long-term future in Atkins probably would be more of in a management role, I think. So it's allowed me to sort of consider what my future will be, and I think it's shaped my short-term and long-term objectives as a result.
Is that something which you originally thought you would do, or is it by doing what you've been doing, and for example, holding these meetings, being the organizer, that you now think, oh, I'm going to be a manager? Would you say that's kind of shaped your future and swayed you in a way which you didn't really originally realise you would go?
I would definitely say it would, yeah. So I had the intention of getting chartered, similar to Tivani, and then I wasn't really sure where I would go from there, whether to delve more into a technical competency or move further afield. But yeah, so sort of having this role as project manager / leading the project in other areas, I've realised, yeah, that's actually really fun. I'm not half bad at it. Why not keep going? So yeah, it's definitely swayed me.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. And how amazing is this that you can almost have numerous careers within Atkins. You know, you can change, you can chop, you can think, actually, I'm going to go this way, actually, no, I'm going to go that way. And, you know, it's amazing that, you know, Atkins can offer that and support that. And, you know, you've got that network that is kind of pushing you on and encouraging you to do what's best for you. So it's phenomenal, the opportunities that you've had and going to have. It's great.
I think something else that came out of the Insight Day, Jess, that we did last year, you know, there was that, what you've just mentioned, but I remember a lot of the grads were saying as well that they could start a project and see it all the way through to the finish. And I think I don't think that's what a lot of companies do, you know, that you're part of a certain area of the project. But when we were speaking to the grads last year, you know, they were there at the very forefront of the project, and then when it went live, and that was something that was quite appealing to the, you know, the grads that we've interviewed in the past before as well.
Yeah, definitely. Which kind of touched upon the next kind of area I wanted to touch on was like training and development is obviously a massive thing that, you know, you've all mentioned, you've all talked about. But Susie, I know you had some points on that you wanted to raise about, you know, your experience and how your training and development has gone so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So Neve's already mentioned about the sort of the graduate induction. But as part of the graduate scheme at Atkins, there's a dedicated sort of 2-day training event every year, which is really useful for building up soft skills and sort of growing your network as well amongst your fellow graduates. But in addition to that, I was also lucky enough to be selected to go onto the Women's Development Programme last year. So this is it's a development programme for women. Pretty much what it says on the tin, and this is 4 days of training, and it's really aimed to sort of again develop a bit of soft skills and to build awareness of sort of how you take your career from sort of good to amazing, so really going to that next level, and that also came with I think it's 2 hours of coaching post the course as well. So you set yourself objectives, and then your career coach calls you up and it's like, oh, how are you getting on with that? Yeah. So it keeps you accountable. So in addition to all that sort of soft training, which has been really good, I've also been quite lucky. We've done quite a lot of technical training sort of through my practice, so it's been things like software, soil and rock description, which might not appeal to everyone, but it's great if you're a ground engineer.
Yeah.
And also I'm going for chartership with the ICE as well, so we completed the ICE Law and Contracts course as well as a group of us. So yeah, really great selection of training. It's been really positive.
That's great. Yeah, I think you've all kind of touched upon that support network that you've all got and pushing you, encouraging you to go forward, which is just phenomenal. I kind of want to round off, and I love this question because I think hindsight is a wonderful thing. So since you all have gone through this experience, and we've got so many listeners, hundreds of listeners today, I wonder if you could kind of give them, kind of some hints and tips on, you know, if you could go back and look at your younger self and, you know, that those worries and that anxiety you might have about going through the process, applying for jobs, applying for a graduate program, you know, thinking about your career, what kind of hints and tips would you give to the listeners or your younger self and think, this is what I would do? Not necessarily different, but you think, actually, I was really worried then and I didn't need to be, or, yeah. Has anyone got anything that, you know, Christina, have you got any kind of advice you'd give to our listeners or your younger self?
Yeah, younger Rosina needed to chill out a lot more. I put myself under so much pressure just for myself in my final year exams, which are probably this time, 4 years ago. I wasn't sleeping well. I had so much expectations for myself, and I just put myself up into this horrible little mental space of, if I don't do well enough, I won't go back. And really, because Atkins is so, wonderful and it cherishes people, it's one of those things of it. it's not a big deal, like you'll get your degree and you'll come back, we'll wait for you. And I was thinking, if I don't get good enough, I won't go back. They won't like me anymore. It's not. They're such a lovely company. So chill out. You know your stuff. Just believe you can do it and try and get some better sleep.
Oh, that's lovely, that one. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, that is good. I think that's a massive thing, isn't it? Self-doubt, thinking that you can't do it. I know when I'm on campus and I'm speaking to you all, and I'm on, you speak to people, oh, I'm doing a master's in this, and I'm doing a master's in that. I'm like, oh, wow. Like, I look up to you all in awe. I think you're all amazing. So, no, definitely self-belief is a very good point. Tavani, what advice would you give?
I would tell myself to put myself out there a bit more, message people all the time. Everyone is so keen to help, like I've said before. If there's some part of the company that you're not necessarily in, that you're interested in, just message someone that's in there, and then they'll be so happy to tell you about their job. And if they've got some availability, they can show you what they're doing, or you could possibly get involved, because I've recently done that, and I'm doing so many different bits alongside my day job, and it's really useful.
Oh wow, yeah. That's, again, isn't it fantastic that you've got the option, you can do that, you've got a network of people where you feel comfortable and say, show me what you're doing, because sometimes oh, actually no, I don't want to get involved. Yeah, that's great. Susie, go on, tell me your advice.
Don't worry. I think that's echoing what other people have said, but more specifically, don't worry if you don't know what you want to do, or if you're putting yourself under pressure to find like your perfect career or your perfect job. It's fine. Just go for it. If especially at Atkins, there is sort of flexibility to move into other areas, as everyone else has said. But even if you sort of get a job with another company, or for a company that actually wasn't your first choice, you've got a flexibility to move later on. Your career is sort of, I don't know, 50 years, 40 years long. So don't put yourself under all this pressure to get it right first time.
Susie and Rosina, I think I should have taken your advice before this webinar. Sleep, don't worry. I think everybody's the same thing. Oh, I should have done that.
Oh, that's funny. What's your advice?
Is that to Louis?
Yeah. Jamie?
Yep. Sorry, I didn't know who you were addressing at first. So I think my advice would be, I think Susie sort of hit the nail on the head about not knowing. Even if you don't know exactly what you want to do just yet, it can still turn out all right. I did a degree in biomedical engineering, and then I did an internship with TfL, completely unrelated to what my actual degree was. And then from there, I realised I want to get into transportation. I want to get into systems engineering, and then applied for Atkins and got the job. So I was winging it for a little bit, but yeah, eventually found the route that's right for me. So yeah, don't worry, basically.
I think it's Alex.
That experiences, doesn't it? You always think it's going to go in a straight line and it's going to go in the right order, but it's actually quite good. The experiences that you've had elsewhere, the experience that you gain already, then makes you realize where you want to eventually be, because where you think you're going to end up now might not be where you actually end up. So no, it's fantastic. Sorry, Cal, I put it in there.
No, I was going to say exactly what you just said. The highs and the lows, it's all experience. It's all part of the journey, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah.
Fantastic. The last thing I would say, and I've already had my slot, but don't compare yourself to other people.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, but I think something that's helped me is be inspired by other people. So if you like, oh, that person's really good, I'll never be like that. Be like, oh, but use that more as inspiration rather than.
That's a good point.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm just looking at the time. Jess, is there time for one more question, or shall we wrap it up?
I think I'd quite like to bring it back to Neve in terms of obviously, I know you've touched on the process for next year, but I think the key message is Atkins is recruiting. So if you are thinking about working for Atkins, obviously have a good look at the hub and obviously listen to the insights and everything we've done. But if there's anything new that you maybe want to touch upon in terms of
Yeah, like tips maybe. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm really lucky. I think everybody's on the same page. You know, number one, research. You know, you want a company that's going to nurture you and help you through this early stage of your career and open you up to opportunity. And with Atkins, you know, we're multidisciplinary. We have so many different business areas. We're so big, but we have that local feel.
Yeah.
And we're so lucky that we can give people the exposure they need, whether that's, you know, for all the competencies they need on their route to chartership, or whether it's just developing their softer skills or developing as, you know, somebody in their young career. So really, really research. Another tip I would really give to students, you know, I don't think any student will have the physical, mental, or emotional capacity to apply properly for 30 companies.
Yeah.
Which is technically it's what you could do. You could start all your applications. It's just not going to nurture you how it needs to. It's really going to wear you out. So really prioritize. Find those 3 or 4 companies. You know, don't put all your eggs in one basket, but find those companies that really speak to you, whether it's about the culture or the projects. Really research them and then prioritize which ones you're going to apply for. And then another really important thing, and this I bring up every year, this year of all, I mean, definitely it's something to think of. Just do it. Get that application in.
Yeah.
You know, don't sit on it and think, oh, I have a week off over Christmas, I might do it then. No, what's stopping you now? You know, the way our application process is developed, it's not that you have to write War and Peace in one weekend and you have to sequester yourself away and you won't see the daylight. You know, it's designed in such a way that you can dip in, get each stage of it done. But so yeah, really, really just get that application done, get it in. And I suppose my final point would be, you know, really personalize it to each job that you're applying for, each role. You know, we want to hear about you. We want to know why you're choosing us. We're delighted that you are, but we want to know why. So make that application really personalized and it will just bring that application to life for us.
Yeah. I think there's some fantastic hints and tips there, and just from a personal level, you know, I love working with Atkins. I think you're absolutely, all of you, amazing. I mean, I've got really good relationships with everybody on the recruitment team. So when Neve said at the beginning that you're going to get buddied up with somebody in the recruitment team, and they're all lovely. And I've spent many a meeting with them. They're really funny people to be around as well. And the grads that we've met either virtually, you know, these guys here, and we've met them a couple of times now, and the guys last year, it just seems like such a great company to work for. And so, you know, remember the key dates Neve said about opening in October. Get them followed on GradCracker as well to be alerted. What you can do is rewatch this. This webinar will be held within the Career Centre as well. So if you want to go back and think, oh, what did they say, and what did Neve say about, you know, the key points and everything else. So make sure you rewatch it. Make sure you do your research and apply to their opportunities in October. And just one last point, don't forget we're holding a series of webinars. The next one will be on the 6th of August at 2 o'clock with Network Rail, where me and Jess will be here again. Second one in. Woo. And I'd like to thank so much, you know, you guys for attending this webinar. You've all been absolutely brilliant. They've done so much work before this as well. So thank you all very, very much. And to our listeners, thank you very much for listening. And we'll hope that you'll listen on the 6th of August as well.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
See you later. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.